like to call the regular council meeting of March 26, 2018 to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill.
Present.
Mr. Steigel. Present. Mr. Arcuri.
Here.
Mr. Kozer.
Here.
Mr. Lewis. Here. Mr. Ball.
Present.
Mr. Berkowitz will not be in attendance tonight.
I ask that you all stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 12, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 501, Mr. Lauer. Next item is special reports, presentation of the key to the township to John Henry Kruger, our silver medalist. So, Mr. Kruger will please come forward. We have first a proclamation. You can just stand to the microphone. You can come from this.
All right.
Why don't you go up there? You can go there, good?
I don't know. Do you want me to read from your...
You can read from here.
Yeah, I'll read it.
This is his first meeting.
Yeah.
This is my first time chairing.
Mine as well, so we're both on the same even playing
That's right.
field. Yeah.
Exactly. And it, it's hit me this morning that I was going to be reading a proclamation for an Olympic medalist who is half the age that I am. And one of the younger people on this panel. So, Peters Township proclamation honoring John Henry Kruger, Olympic silver medalist. Whereas Peters Township is a municipality that takes great pride in the sense of community and accomplishments of its residents, and whereas the 2018 Winter Olympics held in Pyeongchang, South Korea, brought together nearly 3,000 athletes from 92 nations to compete at the highest levels in their respective sporting events, and whereas the goal of the Olympic movement is to contribute to building a peaceful and better world by educating youth through sport practiced without discrimination of any kind in a spirit of friendship, solidarity, and fair play, and whereas John Henry Kruger, a native of Peters Township, is a decorated short-track speed skater, having previously medaled in World Cup events in Seoul, Shanghai, Salt Lake City, Montreal, Turin, and Kelowna, and whereas competing in the 2018 Winter Olympics, John Henry Kruger faced off against 32 athletes from 14 nations in the 1,000-meter short-track speed skating competition, eventually winning the silver medal. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Peters Township Council does hereby honor John Henry Kruger, Olympic athlete, on his achievement of winning the silver medal at the 2018 Winter Olympics, and declares the week of March 5th, 25th, 2018 through March 31st, 2018 as John Henry Kruger Week in Peters Township. Signed by Manager. Chairman, to present you with this key to the township, and we fully expect that in 4 years you'll be coming back here with a gold medal. So, congratulations. Get a couple of shots. There you go.
This kind of heavy.
Don't
skate me a little.
I know. I'll be wearing it walking around town. Wear it to the gym.
It's kind of hard to hold this up. That's a big
Don't let the key block it.
Put the key low. Yeah, you're blocking the metal.
Lower the key.
Yeah, there you go. It doesn't look comfortable. It will work. All right. I got you.
And since we're probably not going to do this again anytime soon, let's get all kinds of...
Okay. That should be a rule for anytime an Olympic medal comes in.
Yeah, that should be my one act as vice chairman. I'm going to pass a resolution. Every Olympic medalist that comes in here, the entire council gets it.
That's okay.
Right, forever here, they'll say they won't be secluded, or they can stay there. I'm not going to be responsible for that.
Okay. Look at the big piece of it. All right, there it is. Well, you never know. All right, you're immortalized, Frank. How about that? And these, sir, my name's Harry. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah.
Like they say, this doesn't come along.
Good, Ellie. Good, Ellie. This is silver medal or gold medal.
Consider you humbling him at all? Accolades.
Or is it all in his head still, huh?
Oh, you knew this was so awkward. Just couldn't help.
Next item on the agenda is audience comments. This is the point of the meeting where anyone from the audience can speak for up to 5 minutes on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak this evening? Seeing no one, we will move on to unfinished business, of which there is also none. So we will move on to new business. First item is the consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. The purpose of this item is to improve the efficiency of our meetings and to avoid people having to wait for items that apparently require little or no discussion. So these items will all be acted upon in a single motion. Any item may be taken off the agenda and acted upon separately if any member of council or an audience member so requests. The items on the consent agenda this evening are: A, special permit request for Kmart for the storage of bagged goods and plants from April 2018 to October 1st, 2018. B, special permit request from St. David's Episcopal Church for the Peters Township Farmers Market from May 23rd to September 26th. C, special permit for the Giant Oaks Garden Club for their annual plant sale and flea market on May 19th, 2018 to be held in the library parking lot. D, temporary sign permit for the Giant Oaks Garden Club for their annual plant sale and flea market from May 5th, 2018 until May 19th, 2018. And E, a request from Peters Township School District to modify the rental fee for field number 1 and field number 10 so as to accommodate WPIAL Interscholastic Baseball Championship Tournament. Does anyone on council wish to remove any of these items from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda? Hearing no opposition, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
The motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer.
Mr. Kozer, before we move on, I had a question about the St. David's permit. I assume that these are all consistent with what we did in prior years, correct?
Yes.
But I noticed that there's a document here which I thought was ours, but actually it isn't, and it's called the Peters Township Farmers Market. It's captioned. So, I mean, I'm sort of concerned a little bit about the use of Peters Township Farmers Market, because I think it lends some, potentially, that we're sponsoring it somehow or that way. And I know there's not probably any way to not make it like that. So,
And I think that's what it's been called since its inception.
yeah.
And I think it has more to do with its geography as much as anything.
Okay.
Next item is resolution amending the Peters Township Personnel Manual providing for a job description for the position of Assistant Planning Director.
The 2018 Peters Township operating budget includes an appropriation for the position of Assistant Planning Director. The focus of that position, I believe, is to be twofold. One is to assist the Planning Director with the processing and approval of residential and commercial plans. And secondly, we hope that this individual would also be available to develop a more systematic and aggressive approach to the enforcement of property maintenance issues. And the initial step in our hiring process is to put in front of council a job description for the position. And if that is approved, our intention is to go out and advertise for that position.
I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt the resolution 030118, amending the personnel manual to include a job description for the position of Assistant Planning Director.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just had a question or two. I asked Mr. Lauer if we could get a copy of the prior one, and the only reason is the job description for the planning director that I had was a little older. And the new one you wrote is actually a little bit more in detail and specific. So I just wanted to be sure that the director position, job description was very similar. There are a lot of exactly the same wording, but on the newer job description for the assistant, again, it's a little bit more specific, so I wasn't sure what the differences were. Can you speak at all to some of the points? For example, many of these say enforces, makes recommendations, assists, and there's no qualifiers in the actual other director's job description, unless there's a new version that I haven't seen.
There is not a new version. That job description has not been amended. It does, in fact, mirror very closely what the responsibilities of the planning director is. And one of the motivations for this position is what we've been attempting to do in other departments is to create a situation where and Mr. Zook's going nowhere. But if Mr. Zook was no longer available in that position, that in fact we would have identified a person who could hold the department together or be the next person up. And so therefore, a lot of those duties that you see are going to be very similar in description.
That really, I appreciate that, and I understand that. And the assistant is a subordinate position to the director. And it was my concern that some of the wording in this assistant made it almost seem like they had a little bit more responsibility. So if you're comfortable with the way it's written,
yes,
as far as how things are, that was my question.
I don't think we're going to have confusion in that area, really.
Well, again, it's a subordinate position, and,
right.
and there had to be enough things that made it look subordinate so that you could get the correct grade and everything else. So that was just my question.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item on the agenda is resolution accepting streets, public improvements, and easements in the Tuscany subdivision plan.
In your docket, you have a recommendation from Mr. Zemaitis. Gateway Engineers has gone out and inspected the public improvements and believes that they are complete and in a position to be accepted. The exception is that we are not accepting the stormwater management ponds at this point in time. And the other thing that needs to be done is that there's a top coat on the roads that needs to be placed on. But it is the township's practice with regard to both of those that they occur at a later date. So.
This is from Benjamin Marcus Hoses.
Yeah, it's hoses. I know that's a typo. I'm going to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 030218, accepting the public improvements in the Tuscany plan, except for the stormwater detention facilities and subject to the receipt of an 18-month road maintenance bond with respect to the final coating of the roadway. Although I thought we already had the bond.
Well, what this 18-month bond is guarantee the condition of the base. Okay. At the point in time when the top goes on, there will be another bond.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is approval of the Stefan Consolidation Final Plan as shown on drawings prepared by Converse Surveying dated January 10th, 2018 for Michael E. Stefan and Gloria D. Stefan.
Go ahead.
Simple consolidation of basically 1 1/3 parcel of ground that's owned by the Steffans on Locust Drive. I don't see them here tonight. This plan simply combines those 2 lots into one. It creates a 0.62 acre property. and it's in a zoning district, a low-density residential district, which the minimum acreage is .5 acres. Planning Commission did review it and recommended council approve the consolidation. Subject, there's no conditions.
What are they adding? Just that little strip? And it's
They
coming
own
from
it.
where? They own it. They're just
They
putting
own
it
it.
together?
What's that?
They're just combining?
Just combining it into
How
one.
did they get a strip like that?
I forget the story behind it, but there was a parcel in between that I think was gobbled up between two outside property owners there. So he has two tax IDs. It's just simply combining it and making it one.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consolidation, consolidation final plan, subject to whatever conditions may have been placed or imposed upon it by the Planning Commission.
I'll second. Mrs. Merrill can have the second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer.
Let me ask another question. I think when you have something like this where you're just adding that strip, I mean, why are we making the landowner go through the whole process of filing a plan of consolidation when we could just merely issue a letter saying that they can do it and attach it to the deed?
I don't think the tax office
That's
will
legal.
allow it.
Yeah, I do it all the time. If the municipality agrees to the consolidation and gives a letter, you just attach it to the deed and describe both parcels, and they'll record it, and that's okay. Because every time I'm faced with this, I always call the municipality first and say, do you require a plan of consolidation? And if most of them are out in the middle of nowhere and they say no, I just say, give me a letter to that effect.
That's, Frank, you've never called Peters Township because we would tell you to follow a plan.
Well, I know that, but I mean, it just seems to me it's a lot of expense. I mean, I can see if you're trying to consolidate, like 2 or 3 average regular lots, but to just do a strip like that.
Mr. Fury, is there a certain size of a lot? I mean, like, is there acreage or minimal acreage?
No, it's, the way I understand the statute is it's based upon a municipality. If they require a plan of consolidation, then that you have to do one. Otherwise, you could just get a letter and say, I want to consolidate these two. They just say you can consolidate these 2 lots, and as long as I do a meets and bounds in the deed, they're okay.
Yeah, the recorder typically will take that in Washington County anyway. But I know here, Frank, like, we've had this discussion over the years about simple subdivisions, not having to come before this board and doing them at least administratively. But we still require the formal process right now to come before this board, even for a re-subdivision back in.
Okay, I'm just saying, it just seemed like we put them through a lot of expense just to add that little strip.
You could do a confirmatory deed and
Or something.
and record it in a plan, record the plan.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe you have to be consistent. It has to be all or nothing. I don't know the answer to that.
But I have no problem looking into that. I can just tell you it's always been our practice.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the adoption of the Rolling Hills Park Master Plan.
The master plan was completed in February. We have not placed it on the agenda for action because of the interest that's been expressed by Oxford Athletic as well as the Y and the concern about what that means for some of the things that are shown on the master plan, particularly the location of the road. From speaking with the school district, the Oxford Athletic is no longer interested in pursuing a building on this site. As of this morning, I think the why at best we can be saying is that they are going to postpone a decision with regard to what to do on this site. So I really do believe this plan is in a position at this point to be adopted. I think it would be good from a couple of perspectives. We have an engineer out there designing this roadway, and I would certainly like to be in a position to know that it's officially the township's position that that roadway is in the right position. The other thing is that, to the extent that there are any opportunities going forward to acquire grant funding, it's going to be necessary to have an adopted master plan as an official document of the township to be able to do those applications. And I believe the plan to be done. I think based upon the public hearing, I think the plan represents what the community wants to see in their park. So my question to you is, can we place this on the agenda for the next meeting for the purposes of considering its adoption?
Well, we certainly paid a lot of money to Mackin to have the plan prepared. We had public hearings, and there's no, at least in my opinion, there's no reason to hold this up. I mean, it seems like every month there's another proposal from some other entity to build something up there, and they seem to go nowhere for one reason or another. I don't see any reason really to hold this master plan up, particularly if there's any chance that we're going to get some funding for it. So I'll make a motion that we place the Rolling Hills master plan on the next council agenda.
I'd like to make a statement. I think that what you characterized about getting contacts from people is a little different. This is the first time there's been a comment in public made about another entity who came beside the Y. As far as whether that's off the table or what the Y is doing, I appreciate that we can't wait to see what happens. I would like to know if we paid the Y for the survey, if they'd like to give the money back if they're not doing it.
We have not paid the Y for the survey. We met them this morning. They have completed a portion of that study, and they are prepared to share that portion with us, which they have paid for. So,
as far as the idea of getting grants and all that, I appreciate that we need to have a plan in place, and we know it. I thought we had a general idea where the road was going because we had divided the property basically in half. The only secondary issue is the road that's going to loop around all of the amenities we're kind of thinking about. So I appreciate that. But my concern was the fact that there was, beside the Y, another group that had come to the table, and the public knew nothing about that. So that was one of the concerns I have. As far as moving forward, I absolutely agree the road needs to get started because the school's going to move ahead with their construction. So I appreciate that.
yeah, so in that regard, we have a meeting with HRG this week, an update. That's the engineering firm that's handling the design of the road. Where they were directed to begin was this alternative studies with regard to the intersection of East McMurray Road with the road that's going to service the high school. So we're going to be in a position to be able to have that analysis done in early April, and they would like to be able to meet with the school district and the township to go over that. And it's going to be a date we're going to discuss a little bit later. So
well, I'm glad you spoke to that. That was my next question, because you identified that the master plan would set the site of the road, but we don't yet know what the road engineering is going to look like for the beginning of the entrance.
That's right.
So that was where I was also concerned about putting it on the agenda before we had a clear understanding of what that was going to look like. So those were my concerns.
Okay.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay.
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 4-2, Mr. Lauer.
I'm just telling you, I'm voting nay. Just the reason I voted nay was I think that to agree to place it on the next agenda, it should be the agenda following whenever we get the review where this road's going to go. Because otherwise, we're going to get back here in early April, and if we haven't had that meeting for one reason or another, we're just going to have to keep tabling it.
Well, we can do it the second meeting if you want, but I will tell you what is coming from HRG has nothing to do with the location of the intersection. It has only to do with whether the intersection is a roundabout or a traffic signal.
Well, see, I was under the impression that when we talked earlier that where that entrance was going to be on East McMurray Road could change depending on, to be further down or where it is now. I mean, how can we pigeonhole ourselves then into that? I'm sort of glad I did vote no then.
Well, to be honest,
I mean, we had that talk about moving it down further, and it might be less fill or it might be cheaper. Now we're going to pigeon ourselves into one area, and this come hell or high water. If it costs more money, who cares?
No, that isn't what this does. This is a master plan, but I'm going to tell you that based upon what HRG has looked at, that location is where this will be because it makes sense. But
Well, I mean, I guess you can vote no whenever.
Okay.
But
Well, yeah, but I need to, if you are voting no and you have a stand that's that way, I know that in the next couple of meetings, I will not be here. While I've been a vocal advocate of one decision versus the other, I'm not going to ask you to postpone
But let's do
it.
this then. Let's have the meeting with the school district and HRG, and then put it on that second meeting. That's not a problem. It's just at some point, we need to move ahead with this. I think what you may, and we don't know this because we might have a better idea of this come Thursday. Having had discussions with HRG, it may well be that one of these options is going to be the obvious solution, and we'll know whether or not we need to have that meeting, so, well, okay.
But wouldn't we need to have another public hearing on whether it's a roundabout versus a signaled intersection to give the people that live there the opportunity to then make arguments for or against one of those proposals?
Well, let me do this. Let me get you, HRG has come up with a very innovative solution regardless of whether it's a roundabout or a signalized intersection, that quite frankly, if you were a property owner, you would embrace because it improves your access regardless. And so, from that perspective, I think people are going to be quite pleased with what they see.
So now we're in suspense.
Well, yeah, and we'll end that suspense for you as soon as we get the drawings.
But isn't that all subject to what PennDOT will approve?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so what happens if we agree to that and do that, and PennDOT says no? Then how do we adjust where the road's going to go?
But both of these designs are being done in consultation with PennDOT, so that's not.
Well, but that doesn't mean anything.
You do have to remember too, and I don't care when we approve the master plan, but the location what the master plan does, it's like a feasibility study. It doesn't say 52.3 feet from the existing road is where the new driveway is going to go. It's a general idea that we're going to have a connector road that bisects the property. It's going to connect the Center Church and it's going to connect the East McMurray. If it's 50 feet this way or 100 feet that way, it doesn't affect the master plan.
Mr. Zamitis, that makes sense except for the semantics of the line that says, the master plan will officially establish the alignment for the roadway. Poor choice of words.
Well,
what you're saying is true. That was my concern.
If there's a poor choice of words, it's only that it establishes the general location, because what we've been dealing with up to this point is a roadway that moves significantly, and that's not the case. The master plan will show where the roadway will generally be.
Okay.
Generally is a good word.
Okay.
Generally is better than officially established.
Okay. All right.
We listen to what you do, and I read what you write.
I got to be more careful.
I was going to say that. I saw that. I was like, he did a bunch there.
But let's do this. Let's put it on for the second meeting in April. We'll have had the meeting with HRG. All those questions will be answered.
Do we need another motion to that effect?
I think you have to revote it.
Amend your motion.
Right, I will amend my motion to place the Rolling Hills Park Master Plan on the agenda for the second regular meeting in the month of April 2018.
Amend your second.
Okay, we have a amended motion and an amended second. Any further discussion?
Amend your ayes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 6-0. There we go. Now it's unanimous. Look at that.
Very fruitful motion.
The level of cooperation on this board is astounding. Next item on the agenda is payroll and bills. I have reviewed the payroll and bills. I found them to be in order. I make a motion that we approve the payroll and bills.
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. On to correspondence. Letter from Dominic DeFranco, VFW Parade Chairman, dated March 2nd, 2018, inviting members of council to participate in the Memorial Day Parade. So I guess we are invited to participate in the Memorial Day Parade.
And if you're in
As we every year.
Has anyone ever done so? Just out of curiosity.
I've never done it.
Not me personally.
Some people have in the past, yes.
Just curious. On to reports. Is there any report here that anyone on council would like to comment on?
I have a question for the solicitor. There was a notation about reviewing HOA documents, and I wonder, and not to get into specifics, I don't want to, but I just wondered under what circumstances is it warranted for you to do that for an HOA?
You know, it's a new thing that the township is doing, and I'm not sure what the directive came from, but the last couple have come over.
It's part of the new conservation residential and mixed residential requirements that as part of the final plan submittal, they submit the HOA documents to the township for solicitor's review.
Yeah, it's been the last couple, and there are times, you don't want to get into in-depth like what I'd like to see in there, but there are certain things that have stood out that we do it more from a protection, honestly, of the resident side, of making sure they understand what they're getting and their rights are.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's how we look at those. We've changed some recently on the voting side.
Yeah.
On the statute, I thought was not being employed correctly in terms of when they were going to cede review to the association, things like that. But obviously, I don't want to rewrite them, so we're careful how far we go.
And I make sure that everything that the HOA is ultimately going to be responsible for is clearly identified in those documents.
Okay, so then just a clarifying question, two clarifying questions. The timing of it, you said is, because the plan you reviewed has been ongoing, they're in what, the fourth or fifth phase, I can't remember.
The most recent one, I think it was.
Are you talking about Hamlet?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't do much with that one. The previous ones, because we couldn't do too much with that one. The other ones, if they had like sidewalks or different things, we wanted to see who was going to maintain those. We try to answer those questions before they come up later, because we anticipate, from experience, that they are going to.
And is it only in the conservation?
Conservation residential and mixed residential, but there are, in a conventional half-acre development, if there's an HOA, we will do the same thing.
But you won't go retrospectively to review them?
No, there's no mechanism to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with any comments on any reports?
I have a question about the right-to-know denials or right-to-know requests that are mentioned in the solicitor's.
That's probably, we have an executive session, it's probably better to discuss it there.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
My only question, in reading the newspaper over the weekend, there seemed to be a potential resurgence of considering radar for local police forces. I think we've got enough residents in this community that talk about the speeders in their neighborhood, and I'd encourage council to encourage staff to contact our legislator, at least to be in support of further consideration of that.
We can do that.
It was interesting that this Commonwealth is the only
Only
place that does not permit that.
I think the police chief would like it.
Yes,
They would. We've looked into it, so.
It would certainly serve as a far greater deterrent than the police hiding in the driveway of the house next door, in the morning, so.
Yeah. And pitting neighbor against neighbor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably give us a little more money in the budget, too, at the end of the year, but anyway.
That all goes to the state.
Yeah, I know. Miscellaneous, anything on miscellaneous, Mr. Lauer?
Well, I just want to point out a couple dates to make sure these work for council. First, there is a ribbon cutting on April 11th at 6:30 for the new concession stand. So if members of council are interested in attending, that would be much appreciated.
What time is that, Paul?
6:30.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday. I'm sure Tom will send us a reminder.
Yes, he will.
Thank you.
I unfortunately have a commitment that night on the week, so I'm sorry I'll miss it.
So tentatively, we have a joint meeting with the school board to talk about the road on April 16th. And
I will not be available.
That will be here.
Tax day.
That's the 16th.
Now, isn't it the 17th?
Is it 17th this year?
Yeah, it's the 16th.
Tuesday, May 9th, we would like to schedule the board recognition dinner. Does that work for council?
Works for me.
What day?
Tuesday, May 9th.
That's a Wednesday, Paul.
Oh, excuse me, it should be the 8th, I'm sorry. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then finally, the police department has been working on drafting new policies for incorporation into a new police department manual. They'll have a significant portion of that done by June, and they would like to have a workshop with council to go over the policies that they're proposing to date. And prior to getting to council, one of the things that Chief Grimes is going to be doing is providing an index of all of the policies they wish to adopt and suggesting to Mr. Smith which ones they need his help in terms of reviewing. So that before that it gets to council, Mr. Smith will have a chance to review those.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, two things. Speaking of police, I had the occasion to meet one of our new part-time officers. Officer Walker came when he delivered my docket. And very nice gentleman, another retired state policeman. And I wondered if for the time I've been on council, we've never done it, but I wondered, have we ever in the past brought the officers,
Yes.
not to be swearing in, so we could all meet them and the people could see them, you know? I mean, I think it would be nice to introduce them, particularly the part-timers, with the 12-hour shifts and the way they work. You never know if you're going to run into anybody. Yeah. And I'd rather meet them in a nice way first.
We have in the past. I could talk to Chief Grimes about doing that with our current part-time staff.
And I did want to recognize his idea of these retired state police. That seems to be really being a good solution to the problem.
Oh, it is a brilliant solution, and one that a number of police departments in the South Hills are now emulating because of our success with it.
That and city, I shouldn't exclude the city.
Yeah, yes, in
it was
both
a great
cases.
idea.
Yeah.
I did have one other question, Mr. Chairman, if I had a minute longer.
Sure.
The sports associations, we utilize a lot of those, and we have this ribbon cutting that the soccer associations helping to pay for it. We just had baseball, who's going to help pay for a turf field, and the football association paid for the lights, and they paid for a turf field. And these people seem to be doing really well monetarily. Do we as a township have any responsibility to the residents who participate on the associations to require any kind of financial disclosure to the township since they use our facilities? Do we get their audits? Any increases in fees come to the Department of Rec Board.
And two, they're responsible providing us financials to the Park and Rec Board. So yes, and I'll verify that, but I'm almost positive of that.
Okay, if you can verify that we in fact get those, it would be good. I just wondered because it's surprising sometimes when they say, oh, we'll pay for that. And you just, I guess selling those concessions is really
I think the concessions are, in fact, a good source of funds.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything under miscellaneous?
I do have one thing. As we had discussed after the last meeting, we are in the process of attempting to review Mr. Courtney's subdivision plan, and one of the items on that subdivision plan is that it assumes he has the right to occupy a portion of property that is owned by Peters Township. We've asked them to provide documentation as to what that supports that claim. Mr. Smith has had a chance to review that. We would like, if we could, for council to go into executive session to have Mr. Smith report on what he has found, and then suggest that perhaps council take action tonight to give us direction as to how we should proceed.
Okay.
Let's go into executive session.
Do we have to do it now, or we have one at the end of the...
Well, we would actually like to reconvene council for the purposes of taking action and give us direction.
Okay.
All right, so we will move into executive session.
Township's interests insofar as the Courtney and the vacant building on Valley Brook Road there.
in township land there.
In relation to the township land.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next agenda, are there any items that any member of council would like to see placed on the next meeting agenda?
Not necessarily next, but at some point, the status of the emergency management plan.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the order? We're adjourned.